Welcome to another edition of Business Spotlight. You are very welcome today, and we are super pleased to be able to introduce a special guest today, a person that has developed a business within a genre, within a marketplace that did not exist in reality at the time that she was originally launching around 10 years ago. And we're very pleased to welcome Sam Decombel today, who is the CEO of Fitness Jeans. Now, Sam's going to tell us all about this story and lots of it, but I think it would be really wonderful first, Sam, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit more about the specifics of what Fitness Jeans actually delivers. Help people listening out there running their cafes and their garages and whatever businesses they happen to have, exactly what the products and services that you guys deliver. I think that's something that we really need to understand. Tell us more, Sam. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Ellis. Thank you. It's a real
You're
pleasure
welcome.
to be here, and very happy to tell you more about what we do at Fitness Genes, because it is something quite unique, I think.
Absolutely.
We're essentially leveraging genetic data, DNA, but also other biological data as well, and lifestyle data. So we amalgamate it all together and do lots of modeling to make predictions as to biologically the sorts of nutrients, the sorts of exercises, lifestyle interventions that are likely to work best for an individual to help them achieve either their fitness goals or indeed extend a healthy life.
Longevity,
In a
right?
nutshell, yeah, longevity, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. If anybody has not yet been on the website, go search for Fitness Genes. It's a fantastic website. It's very engaging, and it describes, how if you like, the consumer, the B2C consumer can acknowledge or access, should I say, the service, but also the professionals out there. So tell us a little bit about your routes to market then, Sam. How are you going? Which is the primary route today, and how do you see it in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. We originally started in the direct-to-consumer space, so B2C.
Okay.
This was, as you said, over 10 years ago. We started off in a niche market with bodybuilders, actually. So the
People
business,
like me, obviously, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
as you can see behind me, I'm so the other way with resistance training is something we're huge proponents of still at Fitness Genes, and it was the origins of the business in muscle building.
Cool.
But so we had this niche market, and we built up a really loyal following around that market by making recommendations to our customers of ways in which they could essentially build muscle more effectively and lose body fat. So those were the two core facets on which the company was originally founded, in terms of making biological predictions as to how people could achieve those goals quicker and more effectively.
Fascinating.
We realized through the sort of life cycle of the business, we raised several rounds of funding. We were very successful early on as a business in developing a customer base in that niche space. But we
Now,
realized, sorry, Alice.
sorry, Sam, let me jump in there for 1 second. How many people founded the company originally? Was it just yourself, or were there other people involved?
There were four of us originally. So
Okay.
myself, I've got a background in genetics. I have a PhD in genetics. We had
Okay.
one co-founder that was a PhD in genetics, or DPhil, I should say, from the University of Oxford, where he was working as a postdoctoral researcher. We
Okay.
had a medical doctor, and we had a nutritionist with over 10 years experience in the industry. So it was a very academic founding team.
Yeah, well, so I mean, forgive me for interrupting there, but I wanted people to understand exactly how you set the business up at the beginning. So you've got yourself four very smart people with a very good idea,
Mm.
but of course, turning that into a viable business is something else, isn't it? So please carry on. Tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. We went through several rounds of raising fundraising through business angels in the first instance. And then
Excellent.
in 2017, we raised our first serious investment, which was a Series A investment of $5 million,
Yeah.
which really allowed us to expand and grow the business. But in the process of speaking with VCs, one of the pieces of feedback we were getting continuously was, where is the lifetime value proposition in each customer? You only
Yeah.
have to do this DNA test once, your DNA doesn't
Yeah.
change. We were
100%.
able to continue reporting new information on each customer. So there's potentially a subscription-based model there, but we're seeing other companies in the space that are trialing this, and it's not working out very well for them for a myriad of reasons to do with, I think, predominantly the customer's expectations as to what they're getting for the value of that subscription. So we really had to sit down and think, what's the value? What's the long-term value to each individual customer? Why is someone going to be willing to give us more money for access to this type of information? And that's when we realized that actually the pivot we needed to make was to really think about the customer we were selling to. So where we were going direct to consumer, where there was this high barrier to entry, it was very expensive to get in front of people because this was such a new concept and a new product, and
lots of
people,
marketing investment.
it's sciencey, and people don't feel confident in their knowledge around the science. We realized that by working through healthcare professionals, so practitioners, everyone from personal trainers, nutritionists, like clinicians in functional medicine or longevity, we could effectively open up access to much larger groups of customers through a network of partners that would be doing the selling on our behalf. So that was the pivot that we made back in 2020.
So okay, so that's really interesting. So we're smack bang in the middle of the COVID scenario, which perhaps we'll come back to in a minute. So we pivot from B2C to B2B, but maintain B2C engagement as well. So are you running two channels in parallel at this point? Yeah.
We are, exactly. We had a long discussion about whether it would be worthwhile closing down the B2C operations, because obviously it does take up resource and bandwidth internally. We decided that actually it's a fantastic sandbox for us because it allows us to work with customers to understand their needs and requirements. We get really great engagements. We were introducing, before we made the pivot, we were introducing new features to the platform that would allow them to save actions, to track actions, which means we've also got a database of, like, a wealth of knowledge essentially on the types of recommendations that customers want to follow and that they're saving, like what are, interestingly, our top saved action across the whole site at the moment. Unsurprisingly, it's a food one, and it's to take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a glass of water in the morning. So that's the #1 saved action across the site at the moment.
All right. And I've heard that before somewhere else actually recently. I couldn't tell you where it is. Well, that's fascinating. So, okay, so I guess the listener, okay, the audience or the viewer, should I say, is going to be sat there in their garage or their cafe, their restaurants, as we said before, whatever they're doing in small business ownership land, and they're looking at Sam and Fitness Jeans and thinking, okay, so how do I learn from this? Okay, so there's several points there just to recap very quickly on. #1, we got to have vision. We've got to have vision. We've got to create the genesis. We've got to create the product, the service, and we've got to be passionate about that. #2, you've got to have the right people around you, right? Because if it's just Sam on her own versus 4 talented people, maybe this thing works out differently. #3, you've got to access working capital. If you don't have the cash to push the business and feed the business, grow the business, you're going to do it organically, which is probably going to limit you. / not work. #4, you've got to be a marketing driven business. Interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about how you're structuring the company today? I'm intrigued because one of the things that's coming out of these spotlight interviews is that the people that are reaching and going to what we refer to as level 3, which is building out the business that truly works without the founder, the people that own it, they've all accessed non-executive directors, boards of directors, mentors, coaching. It's all about the broader education of the people, not just at the top, but through the organization. Unfortunately, the small business owner tends to be, in our experience, reluctant to access external support. So tell us how you're doing all of the above, Sam.
Yeah, it's a really great question, and a very, I guess, a complex one in terms of the answer in many ways, because some of the way in which the business is currently structured is an evolution of what has happened over those previous 10 years, some of which you might choose to do slightly differently if you're having your time again. But then at the same time, it has got us to where we've got to today. So perhaps it was a necessary and our only option at the time in some cases. But for us, we've got a board of directors. It's relatively small. It mainly consists of the senior investors, and we've got a chairman who I met at a networking event. I think networking is absolutely crucial for small business owners in terms of building up a knowledge network and people that you can reach out to, have those conversations with, bounce things off.
What kind of networking event was it, Sam?
It was mentoring, actually. So I volunteer as a mentor for the University of Birmingham, which was my university that I graduated from.
Okay.
I'm a huge proponent of mentoring. I think it's absolutely vital on an individual level as well. And there's mentoring, I guess there's different types of mentoring, and really identifying the mentoring that you need at any one time, because it will differ again through the life cycle of the business, is important to consider. For me at the moment, I'm working with, I guess, my chairman on a more technical level in terms of at the level of the business requirements and strategy, and thinking about what the business needs at this point in time. I've also got a mentor who's effectively an external consultant to the company at the moment, but he's worked out to be such a great sounding board. He's completely neutral. He doesn't have any day-to-day involvement in the company. I don't have to have the same level of sort of, for want of a better word, putting on the face that you have with the board, where you have to be very professional, you have to be very positive. You don't want to necessarily indicate any weaknesses or concerns at any point, because that's part of your role as CEO, is to ensure that you're steering a steady ship. I can have those more difficult conversations with him. I can get his honest feedback and support. He's outside the company, so he's not at the coalface and directly involved as the members of the team around you will be, where you might therefore have those differences of opinion or conflicts over it. And I think that that's been really, really critical to both my ability to continue to manage the company in a sort of effective fashion, and also managing my own, as we all know these days, mental health and the stress and the strain around managing a business, and particularly starting up a business. As you're saying, if you're a new business owner, it's never greater than at that founding level, where you're counting every penny and you're worrying about every invoice that's coming in. So I think that support can be crucial in those early stages.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And we're kind of really hitting the sweet spot here in terms of what I think is quintessential to level 3 success, and that is that the business can only ever be a reflection of the people that own it or run it. So if you want your business to grow and to develop, then listener, please pay attention to this point. You've got to grow yourself. Because if you're not growing yourself, if you're not giving yourself the kind of external perspective that you're getting, Sam, it's going to be limited by your own limitations, if that makes sense. So for me, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing there. Vision, Sam. How are you guys? We're interested to understand a little bit about what your vision actually is for the company and for the market that you're contributing towards creating. But how are you guys going around building vision? What methodologies are you using? What tools are you using?
I mean, our vision is very clear to us. We want to help people live longer, healthier lives. And that's it at the top level. We want to empower them. We want to put knowledge in the hands of the individual to have a better understanding of the types of foods, exercises, lifestyle behaviors that they can take on board to help extend their healthy life. And for me, that really, it sort of comes back to an early experience. I guess the passion behind it for me is in my own personal experience. I lost my dad when I was 27 to esophageal cancer. It was obviously, I say obviously, most people would probably guess it, that's a lifestyle related disease. He was a heavy smoker, he was a heavy drinker at the time. It was again, it was the reason that I started my business in the first place, actually, because I was working at a university at the time, helping academics to commercialize their research, really interested in running businesses from getting involved at that level. But going through that with my dad over the 2 years since he was diagnosed to when he passed away. I mean, he said to us at the time, if there's anything you kids want to do, you should just go and do it because you might never get the chance. And he had all these grand plans beyond retirements that obviously he never got to. So I took him at his words, and after I did a bit of traveling around, which was something I'd sort of skipped over, I went and traveled around South Africa for 6 weeks, which I'd always wanted to do. I got back and I thought, right, the money that's in the bank that I'd saved up for my first house deposits, rather than do that, I'm going to start up my own business instead. And that's where the origins of the business came from, really, and why I've got a huge passion behind what we do, because I think we genuinely can make a difference to people's lives, help them make healthier decisions. Sometimes it's not as straightforward. We all know alcohol and smoking now are not good for us, and people can make their choices as to whether they want to do that. But there's a lot more nuance in terms of we all know cardiovascular disease is the biggest killer in the West, diabetes coming up fast on its tail. There are very clear dietary interventions that people can take that we can, one, identify those individuals that have the highest predisposition for, and two, signpost them to the correct interventions from a preventative health perspective. So keeping people healthier for longer, really, than thinking about drug development or diagnosis or treatments.
What's your vision for the industry? Share some numbers for us. What do you think the industry is going to become in the future?
Well, we've been doing some research because we're raising investments at the moment. So we've done a amount of research into the prospect for the industry. We know at the moment that the industry is around a $32 million pound industry. We're looking up to 2030 that industry. By industry, I should define it is particularly in genetic testing related to fitness and health and wellness testing.
That's global. That's global.
Global.
It's a global number. Okay.
It's a global number. It's going to grow to somewhere around 30 billion in the next 7 years, 8 years. So that's obviously a huge
100 times, right? 100 times, yeah.
Absolutely. Huge potential opportunity for us as a company in that space to, I guess, take advantage of the fact that we've built the company. We've got 10 years of experience. We've been resilient. It hasn't always been easy. We've had very rocky patches over the last 5 years. We've had to downsize the business. It's been a literal roller coaster. We grew very fast with raising Series A funding, grew too fast, ended up having to shrink the company right back down again, get back to the core focus of in terms of the business strategy and how we reach a sustainable a sustainable level for the business, really, to then grow from.
Isn't it interesting that none of us are insulated from perturbation, are we? We all have to accept that there will always be ups and downs along the way, and this resilience word comes to the front again, Sam, in this discussion. So it's again, hopefully there are parallels out there, but there will be people watching this podcast that will be struggling for cash, but they will not have angel investors. They may not have the access to talent that you've had and you have and you continue to have. So helping people see that these are not just, for me, the important point here is these are not just subject matters exclusively the rights of corporate business. They're also relevant to small business. And if we want to win in small business, we've got to figure them out, working capital in particular. Interesting. So your vision then is to own what percentage of 30 billion?
That's a good question. We're starting off, and I guess this has always been my approach to business, and perhaps it's my as I said earlier, I tend to be more risk averse as an individual. For me, the first step is in taking those baby steps is to reach sustainability. So there are, as you might know, huge companies in this space. 23andMe, Ancestry also do genetic testing for hereditary purposes.
Mhm.
There's very few companies in the space of health and wellness testing. In fact, I would stretch to say none at the moment that have reached a sustainable point where they're not reliant on investments
Okay.
for operations. So that is our first goal, is to
Okay.
reach sustainability, and we've got a pathway to that, which we've laid out for the
Excellent.
next 12 months. So middle of next year, by our plan, we should be able to effectively then raise investment for growth rather than for survival, as it has been up to this point in time. So for me, I can look at that, and as we all know, with these, I can give you a number. I could say we want 5% of that. I could say we want 10% of it. Ultimately, for me, it's about understanding where we need to be next, because when we get to that next step, then we can look up the ladder and see what comes beyond that, because there are so many opportunities for a company like ours in terms of the paths we could go down. We're working with healthcare practitioners at the moment, providing them with a platform to be able to generate these customizable genetic reports for their customers, which is one avenue for us. And that's the one we focused on, because we believe that that is, for us, the sort of low-hanging fruit, I guess, in terms of the most engaged, and that we could ramp up the fastest. But there's huge opportunity in areas such as working with health insurance companies like Vitality, where we've got aligned values in that they want to keep their customers healthy for as long as possible and out of the doctors and the medical surgeries, and avoiding all of the costs associated with that.
So there's a
So,
power.
working with those sorts of companies going forward. Corporate wellness is another one.
Cool.
The opportunity is endless, and to put a number on it is almost too
So,
um,
so
too
this is
trivial.
interesting. This is interesting, right? Because you're demonstrating the competencies that we would expect from a CEO. Okay, with respect, so phenomenal knowledge of the market and the gritty reality of the plan. To hear you talk about planning is wonderful, because again, in small business land, people don't plan. They'll plan their wedding or their holiday or the next house move, but they won't plan what's going to pay for it equals the business. So brilliant that you're sharing that. Please make a plan if you're out there and listening. And what's fascinating though, Sam, a little bit of grit in the conversation here now, is that you're also talking to us with great conviction about how, and about the path. The
Mm,
question was, what's the vision?
mm.
So for the benefit of everybody listening to us in this interview, just tell us what you and your investors and your board would visualize as being the let's let's borrow a phrase from a very well-known business author. What's the big hairy audacious goal? What's the BHAG? What are you aiming for? Come on, put a number on it. Let's show these people out there how to really think. Go on, tell us.
That's a new one.
Have you not heard of that? There you
I've not
go.
heard that one before. Um, I mean, I think we can capture over half of the market, if I'm honest. And I'll tell you why I think that. I think that because we are the only company in this space at the moment that have tangible IP. We had a patent on the way that our model works, which was filed last year in 2023.
Yeah.
Filed, was granted last year in 2023. We've been going through the actual prosecution process for some time. It's about 6 years in the making.
Okay.
And that enables us to combine lifestyle information effectively with genetic information in order to make our predictions. And it's absolutely essential to combine lifestyle information, because as you can imagine, the recommendations you would give yourself in your 20s, say we look at something like, I don't know, testosterone levels. We would have a genetic risk calculation for testosterone levels, whether you're more likely to have lower testosterone or higher testosterone levels on average. And we can give you that as a calculation. But what that means to a man in his 20s versus what that means to a man in his 50s, particularly if he's overweight, he's inactive, are two completely different things. And you are giving those two individuals who have identical genetic profiles completely different recommendations because of that. And that's why I think that's our USP in this whole industry that sets us apart.
Okay, now so here's another key point for the person listening, isn't it? The USP, the unique sales proposition or the unique value proposition, the thing that differentiates, keeps you different. Really good. Again, I'm running a cafe or a restaurant. What makes me different?
Absolutely.
Central questions, right? Absolutely
Absolutely.
central questions. So Sam, I heard 50%. Now I work with a lot of CEOs, a lot of businesses, as we were talking about before, but that even my eyebrows raised because I'm hearing 15 billion pounds there.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Now, don't think any more about it. Don't go any more. Stop there,
My,
because
my
that's.
reasoning, Ellis, if I can, I think we can be the market leader, is what I'm saying. I
Well,
think we can dominate the market.
I
So
think that's fantastic. And again, the reason that I'm stopping there just for a moment is to say to the viewer, um, be ambitious. Or like, in other words, you guys want to be the market leader and interesting to affect 50% of the marketplace. Doesn't mean you're going to deal with 50% of the marketplace directly, but you'll have various different ways to engage them, and it will add up to a significant number. Now, let me think about this. Wouldn't it be a shame if you only ended up at a third? Do you see what I mean? And like, at least you've set your stall out there and you're really going for it. Well played. Good. Okay, so now marketing. Marketing, Sam. This is a subject that we in small business land don't understand. We
mm,
think that marketing is a website or van signage or goodness knows what else, right?
mm.
Um, how do you, how have you approached the dark art of marketing? Because you're obviously adept at it, otherwise you wouldn't be sat here right now. So tell us, not so much the thinking behind the market, that perhaps will be too detailed for the listener. Um,
Mhm.
but are you using internal marketing resources, or are you outsourcing your marketing?
Mm.
Are you building a marketing plan and so on? How do you do this?
It's again another interesting point in terms of the assumption that this is something we would be good at, because as soon as you say marketing, my blood runs cold
Oh,
because it is.
interesting.
I'm a
Interesting.
site by nature, so let me take this in terms of the way that I approached it, which is scientifically. And for me, over 10 years, we had an amount of information in terms of the things that worked for us from a marketing perspective. And let me be honest, we were very scattergun approach in the initial years. We were just trying anything. And if we had an idea, and this is also the beauty of having your own small business, is you can just go try things. There's no admin,
Absolutely.
there's no bureaucracy. Just go and give it a go and see if it works.
Yeah.
So we had a general idea of the sorts of marketing interventions that had been more sort of had worked better for us than others. But when I came back into the company, I took over as CEO in 2020. The one thing that we decided to do, because we were moving to B2B, there wasn't a huge focus on B2C, but we did want to still make a small investment in it, because it was at that time we obviously had no B2B revenue. The only revenue we had coming in was B2C, and therefore to maintain that and maybe grow that as a baseline was something that could still be beneficial to the company. So what we did is we chose 5 different channels of marketing, and we just ran small trials in each of them. So we did a small direct mailing campaign locally, and across several areas where we felt there was a good match with our demographic, our target demographic. We did some podcast work. We engaged a PR agent, and we put some PR out. What else did we do? We ran some Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And there were a number of other, essentially, I mean, anyone can
Websites,
go on and have a look.
obviously.
There's some excellent books out there about looking at various different channels to market. You look
Wonderful.
for the ones that you think are most relevant to your
Yeah.
business, and you
Brilliant.
you basically say, right, I'm going to put a small budget behind each one. There could be just a few £100 to print some leaflets and shove them through people's doors, or to
Yeah.
print some ads in the local paper, all
Test
the
it,
way up
right?
to
Test
exactly
it.
test
Yeah.
it. And that's what we did. And what we found at the end of the year, so that was over the course of last year, and at the end of the year, 90% of our sales came from one PR article that went out in the Times. So
You
we were
cancelled that. You stopped that. Obviously, never did it again, right?
PR, oh yeah, quite. I've seen that happen as well. But we said, right, PR is the thing that works for us. We know that when people tell their stories of how they've used their tests and what results they've got and what impact that's had on their lives, it's the storytelling for us that works. So podcasts have worked, PR and media has worked, as long as it's that storytelling, it's people's experiences, it's case studies. So that's what
Fantastic.
we learned from that.
Emotion, right? Emotion.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think for every business, you're going to have your own channel in terms of the one that will be the right one for you. And then just got to test it and
But you've
explore.
got to find the channel, right? You've got
Yeah.
to, again, great advice, Sam. Thank you for sharing that, because the reality is that people are leaning on preconceived ideas. They think that marketing necessarily, well, probably won't work, and they consider it as a cost instead
Mm,
of approaching it from the direction that you're doing, and that is investing until you find the ones that do work and don't work, and leveraging the ones that do.
mm,
Okay, good stuff. So we've talked about structure, we've talked about vision, we've talked about marketing. So we'll finish today's interview, if it's okay with you, Sam, on one final question. And this question would be, explain to us what your, if you like, what your values are as a business. Now, um, resist the temptation to go into the clinical space, because I think the values are clear there.
mm,
But the actual values of your business, and if you don't mind, explain a little bit about how you reach them, how you've defined them.
mm. You're right. It's difficult in some ways to avoid that because when we look at defining our values, the first thing we say as a business, we're always going to be evidence led, and that was key to us being an academic founding team. So that's certainly part of having the in-house science team. That's one of our USPs as a business. We're not a multi-level marketing company. We are a team of scientists that are behind this and that are doing this, and that's certainly one
Authentic,
of our.
right? Authenticity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
authenticity was really, really key to us. Um, I think in terms of the other ones, um, I would say that the outlook that we have, one of the values is that we believe that everybody is unique and one size doesn't fit all.
And
So
that,
as a
um,
company,
that could apply.
personalization.
So that could, sorry to talk over you, I want to stop you for a minute. What I'm hearing there is that that could be applicable to a customer, but also to an employee, to a
Mm,
supplier,
yeah.
any stakeholder. That, for me, that's a really important value. I like that very much. Sorry,
Mm.
please carry on.
Yeah, and you're right. It counts just as much in terms of sort of looking at the employee side of things. One thing we are as a business, and we always wanted to be, was very flexible. We have
Yeah.
a lot of working parents that work with us.
Okay.
Um, Having that, we have remote workers, and interestingly, we found the hybrid model works really well for us. We need to have people in the office together at times during the week. It's really critical for communication, for just going through tasks and having that head bouncing ideas off again, off people, and just effective team working, but enabling people that flexibility. I feel like we have a very, just listening to our employees, what they want, all the way down to the sorts of benefits that work well for them. Like we ask them, we have a survey every year where we say to them, have you enjoyed the benefits on offer this year? Is there anything missing? And they'll say, yeah, I've really liked the health plan from this year. So I'd prefer if it had more dental. It's a really small thing, but we now know that that's rather than investing in, say, a car scheme, that dental plans are what our team wants. So, and it keeps everybody happy.
In Britain, well, famously, we're nowhere near as vain about our teeth as the Americans are. There's an interesting story or two in there. So, how do you communicate your values to your team, because obviously these guys are the custodians of your values, aren't they? They're the ones that are executing the value statement, the value system that you've developed. So, how do you make sure that they understand values and live them for you?
I think it's twofold. One of which is leading by example. And again, you can't tell them one thing and then do something completely different yourself. So as a business owner and as CEO, I'm very transparent with my team,
Yeah.
to a level. I don't necessarily pass on all of the minutiae of the things and anxieties that might trouble me on a day-to-day basis. I shield them from that. But I'm very clear with them in terms of what we're doing as a business. We have weekly huddles where we all have a sort of 15-minute, everybody just gives a little update on what they're working on and what they're doing. So everybody feels really involved, and that communication is really clear. And as you say, in terms of your values, for me, it comes through there. The second part to that is recruiting the right people in the first place. So ensuring that you have that good cultural fit.
So value-based recruitment, right?
Absolutely.
Sure,
Yeah.
they're a cultural fit. Perfect. Good. Great advice for anybody out there. You know, it usually when people talk to me about problems with employees, there's a okay. There are many different reasons why it root cause, but often it's attitudinal, and there we have the value misalignment. Sam, well, that's been a fascinating interview. Now, one thing, there's a pattern developing here when I'm interviewing people, wonderful people like yourself with a great story and a great product, a great service, a great business, is that there's never enough time. So what we'd like to do, please, if you're okay, is please come back and visit us again, and let's have another discussion about what's going on in this business, and you'll have took it a little further down the road by then. Would you do us the honor of coming back and going round two at some stage?
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. Thank you, Ellis. And hopefully I can come back and tell you all about, because this year is our B2B launch year. So it would be brilliant to come back and talk to you about all the countries we've moved into in 12 months'
Oh,
time. So
well, we
fingers
would.
crossed.
That's exactly the kind of granular level that I would like to go to in the next interview with you, please, Sam. That's great. Well, listen, on behalf of the audience and everybody here at Power Play, thank you for joining in with Spotlight. Okay, we really appreciate your contribution. Thank you, and have yourself a great weekend.